Okay, hi, my name is John. I'm going to walk through the board a little bit with you. Let me start off with the input modules. This board has 12 input modules. They are all alike. So when I speak about one, it applies to the remainder of the other 11. These modules have 4 outputs, just like you would at home in a home stereo. You have 4 outputs. The one that must be lit is the program one that goes out to the transmitter. And each of these boards can have 2 inputs like you would at home, either a turntable or a CD, for example. This board, as well as the other 11, also have a cue. When you push the cue button down and you have your headphones on, you can cue up what you're about to play. This button here, when it's red, it's activated. When it's not red, this module's turned off. The slider control adjusts your volume, or your level, I should say, for that particular module.
All right, can you explain what it means to cue?
Yep, so if I wanted to put a record on and have the vinyl get ready to be played, I can't just turn it on and take a guess where the song starts. So what I would do is, off ear, I would put on the cue button, have my headphones on, I would cue up a record, cue meaning get the record just so that the song is about to start, and then when I hear it starting, I would just back up the turntable, say 3/4 of the way. What that will allow me to, and then that song is cued. What that will then allow me to do is when I want to play it on the air, I would set up my level and I would hit the start button, which would turn on this module, start the turntable, so that it would be right there, the song. There would be no delay, or you wouldn't be in between songs.
Now that would be the same whether you're spinning up an LP record, a CD, or if you were going to use the Gettner,
Right.
or whatever is connected to that channel of the board.
Right. It allows you to hear the source without it going over the air. If I were to put a CD in, I always make sure that the CD is going to start the way I expect it.
All right, now we have these other buttons. So you talked about the program button. What about the audition, auxiliary, and utility buttons? Those are buttons that get people confused.
Okay, similar to the program button, they are an output going somewhere. For the average show that goes over the air, the one they really need to be interested in is that the program button is lit. The audition, the auxiliary, and utility outputs all go to different things, and you can speak to one of the engineers if you really want to get into the specifics of what they do.
So currently, the only other button of concern is the audition button. And that currently, if that button's lit green, it means there is output that's being supplied to our recording decks and our CF audio recorders. So if you're trying to record your show, that green button needs to stay lit in order to keep that bus with the information on it.
Correct.
Okay, good. So John, another thing that gets people confused is this first switch here, the AB switch. What's that about?
Okay, so each of those 12 modules we spoke about, this being one of them, has an AB switch. What that AB does is it allows you to select one of 2 inputs. So each module has the capability of having 2 feeds coming into it. For example, if we went over to this one here, if I have it in A, we can play CD1. If I select B, when it's lit, then CD1 would not work. Instead, the CD read writer that we have would work. A lot of DJs get confused on when the light is on, because is it on? Is that A or is that B? So the way I remembered it is B for bulb. When I see the bulb lit, I'm in B. No,
Okay,
I'm not.
so it's the AB switch, and when it's off, it's A, and when it's on, it's B.
Correct.
Okay, that's great. The next thing people have a lot of difficulty with is the Gettner. What is it that people keep getting messed up with Gettner? Can you just start by giving us a quick overview on the board of controlling the Gettner?
Okay.
And then show us what it is people keep getting wrong.
Okay.
All right.
So the Gettner is, first of all, that's a piece of equipment that radio stations, including us, use to take phone calls and put them live over the air.
Yep.
So like any other input, that has to be inputted into the board somehow. And this board comes with a module that is made specifically to bring in phone calls. That's this module right here. Very similar to the other modules, you want to have this in program mode so that it's going over the air. This particular module has 2 sliders instead of 1. That's because you could have the option of having a second Gettner coming in and bringing in a second caller.
Yep.
If you wanted to. Otherwise, the module would run the same. Now, what gets people messed up, interestingly enough, is way up here, we have this feed. It's called the phone feed, okay? And what happens is DJs don't have this in program mode. And the way you know it's in program mode is it has to have a red LED, a bright red LED lit. And if I walk through these, Rick, you'll see the LED light changes. So this would be the audition feed going out to the audition bus. This would go out to the auxiliary bus. This would go out to the utility bus. But if you want to have the caller go over the air as well, you have to have that bright program.
Now I noticed that time you just had to push that twice, right? So explain that to us. What is that about?
So
I think you just said that's where people get messed
right,
up.
because if I was standing up and I had this selected like right there.
So you can misperceive what the position of this button is if you're viewing it from this angle, right?
Right.
So you really need to get over it and look down.
Right, because it's somewhat lit, so you think, okay, I selected program, but actually,
from this angle it looks like it's lit, but it's not, is it?
It's not lit.
So we get over the top of it,
and look for that bright red LED.
There it is. So now it's lit. Right. So that program has to be lit, and this program has to be lit, and the audition needs to be lit as well.
The audition would be lit if you wanted to
record
if you wanted to record it.
So the audition's just always on if we're recording.
We pretty much leave them on all the time.
Okay.
And then
so that's what gets everybody in trouble right there.
It's right there.
Yeah, and everybody's pulling their hair out. That's crazy. The process of queuing the callers.
Okay, so probably should start. Somebody calls me or I call them. I want to put them over the air. I want to make sure that we tell that person that they're going to be put over the air. That's very important. Put them on hold. Come over here to the Gettner. Turn the Gettner on. Want to come over to this module that we spoke about. Turn on the module. And to cue the call, if you wanted to hear the caller, you could push down the cue button for, let's say, line 1. And similar to any of these other cue buttons, Rick, you could hear what's going on in the background of that person, because you've basically livened up to hear what's going on, but not over the air.
But it would be going out over the air if this button was on, right?
But as long as we have these levels down, all I can do is hear it in cue. But if I were to bring this up,
oh, I see.
Then yes, like any other one, you bring any of these levels up, they will go over the air if you have this selected on.
Okay.
Which is red for on. All right, Rick, let's talk about the AB source button, which each of these modules has.
Great.
AB source means each of these modules can have 2 different sources. For example, if we take a look at this module right here, you'll see source A says CD4, source B says user and number 1. So let me talk about that. What this is saying is that if I have this in A, and A being it's not lit, the button is not lit, that this module will play CD4 if I were to activate.
CD4 is over there currently, and it's not really important just which one it is. Just it's a CD deck.
Right, and activating the module as we would, if this is selected in A, CD4 would play through the module. If we select B, and I always remember B by when I see the bulb lit, I know I'm in B. B begins with B, bulb begins with B. So I know that when I'm in B, I'm activating the B side, or the second source that this module can take, which is user number 1. If we come over to here, we have kind of this patch panel put together. And you'll see here where it says user in number 1, just like it said on the module, user in number 1. What that's used for is, today everybody uses iPods, or they use external players. This allows them to come in here through this patch panel, for example, put this into their output of their iPod, and be able to play, using their iPod, be able to play tunes or whatever they want to play through the board by using user number 1.
Okay.
It's also possible that you might have 2 iPods you want to use so that you can mix. Then you would activate the next board, the next module, which has the same option, except you see this says user number 2. So if I come in with 2 iPods, I have user number 2 input here. I would tie the 2 iPods into these 2. And now I can actually mix those 2 iPods through the board.
Okay. So user in 1 on the left of this patch panel, and user in 2 on the right. And they're controlled right here. User in 1 and user in 2. Oops. There we go. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, Rick, this is the panel module that is used to control the sound or the audio output. For example, this button right here, this knob right here, allows us to control the level of the monitor speakers that are here in the control room. The next one up is to control the level of our headphones that we have plugged into the board. And the top one here allows us to control the Q level, meaning when we have one of these modules selected in Q, we will be able to adjust how loud we can hear that Q level through this control knob right here. It will play on the left side of our speaker, of our headset. It will also play here on the board.
So that's the preview. So Q means preview essentially, right?
Off-air preview. Yep.
Off-air preview, right?
Okay, Rick, sometimes what happens is when you have guests in the room, they will all tell you they cannot hear the programming through the headset.
Ah, I've seen that happen.
Have you seen that?
What causes that?
What causes that is if you come to the very first module, the right side of the board, we talked about earlier is everything should be in program mode, at minimum in program mode. What usually causes that is when all of the headsets for your guests are not working, it's because this module is not selected in program or audition mode. It needs to be in one of the two. For example, if I were to put this into an auxiliary bus, all the headphones are dead.
Oh, yeah, the headphones just stop making noise.
Same thing with utility, dead. But if I put it in program, it'll be fine.
Ah, so it's got to be in program in order for the headphones to work.
Right.
So program on this final
This is the first one
final
on the right.
track or whatever it's called. Okay. All right, good. All right, John, this is other row of buttons here. What does this do? Nobody ever has any idea what this does.
Okay, this module here, we use it as a timer. It has a timer capability right here. What I use it for example, is if I'm going to play a song that has an introduction, and let's say it's 13 seconds, and I don't want to count it in my head while I'm on the air, I can come over here and start the timer. And if you look here, you'll see the timer, okay? There's a start-stop button here. So I can start my song, hit this, and this here will start timing. And when I see 12, 13 seconds, for example.
So it isn't connected to anything else?
No, it's just
it doesn't
a
mess
timer.
anything else up?
No.
It's just a stopwatch, basically.
Yes.
So how does it work again?
So you have a start-stop button. a reset button and a hold button. Right now it says 16 seconds. I can reset it back to 0. I can start the timer right here. I can hold the timer right there.
All right, John, you have any wise words to wrap this up?
Yeah, there's probably a couple of things that would help the next DJ that comes online, and that is this. So when you're using the board, you may have to use different settings particular to your show, and that's fine. You know, I, for example, may use turntables and others don't. So what I try to do is, looking at the board, is I always try to put the board back into a sort of, I guess I'd say, standard position, meaning I make sure that the sources here that are normally selected remain selected or unselected. So I bring them back to the way they were. I make sure that all of my modules are shut off, so I don't leave the board, for example, like this here and like this, and the next guy's got to figure out why. So I bring all my levels down.
With the exception of Otis.
If Otis is on, right, then we want to leave Otis up, which is the automation system.
Yeah.
And I make sure.
So if you are leaving your program and you're leaving it running the automated music, make sure this light is on and this level is actually down at the gray mark.
And that you have B selected for Otis as your source.
Yeah, that'll mess things up. And you should be checking the VU meters to make sure there's something that's actually going out over the air.
That's always a good idea, Rick.
All right.
And then it's also, you should bring these levels down. I have come in when DJs have the headphone level full blast.
Yeah, why is it important to do that?
It's important to bring all these levels down and let the next DJ set them up where he wants to set them up.
Okay. So it's just a courtesy thing.
Right, it's more of a courtesy thing. Now,
what about leaving the speakers playing in here?
So if somebody is coming in right after you, having the speakers on is fine. But if you're going to be the DJ, that's the last one here, and then you're going over to Otis Automation, you should bring down the speakers as well.
Okay. And that's just sort of a courtesy thing for the neighbors?
Yeah, and also, why waste all that energy leaving them on?
Oh,
so
sure.
we just bring them down. If you have used the phones, this is something that is very important not to forget, Rick. So we talked about earlier, if you're using the phones, you're obviously using the Gettner system, which is here. So in setting up the Gettner for a live phone call, you have to turn it on. What you have to remember is when you hang up with that caller, come around here and shut this system off. If you don't, then the phone line stays tied up. So if anyone tries to call in, that phone line is going to act like it's busy.
So it's like the Gettner's got the phone off the hook.
Exactly.
So it'll...
So very important to shut that
So we
off.
can't get any phone calls. Right.
Right.
That might be a problem.
Yep.